Good morning and episode. Okay. Good morning and welcome to episode 54 of the Jaguar Report podcast. It is very early in the morning, but my name is Gus Logue and I'm joined by my co-host John Shipley to break down Texans Jaguars in week 3. How's your week going, John?
Man, 2 episodes in 3 days. I mean, look at us making content.
You love the old pat on the back.
If I had 3 hands, I'd be doing 3 pats on the back. Ignore the fact that it should have been 2 and 4 days, and I completely messed up our schedule this week. But nonetheless, here we are, Gus. Episode 54. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Episode 54. Here we are.
You okay?
I can't really talk. 14, but
it's okay. This isn't a talking medium.
Really?
So, we went over the Chiefs, obviously, Wednesday. Now, Houston Texans. They are. It's like if Andy Reid owns, Doug Peterson, the Texans own the Jaguars. Like they're their boogeyman, which is insane because over the last 2 years, I'd say they've been the worst team in football. Like the last since the Deshaun Watson stopped playing for them, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they've still owned the Jaguars.
I also think it's funny because I think if you ask any Jags fan, like the Titans and the Colts would be a bigger rival. They would consider those teams to be a bigger rival. But then it's the Texans who have won 5 or 6 straight games in Jacksonville.
I think, Trevor Lawrence said the other day, he was talking to Josh Allen, and he was like, yeah, Josh has only beat the Texans once. I'm like, bro, he's been here. This is his 5th year here?
Yeah, that's wild.
That's crazy because, it's not like you're, say you're the Commanders and you keep losing to the Cowboys. I get that, they're the Cowboys, the Texans. It's David Coley and Lovie Smith.
Yeah, that was a big thing I was looking at for this year was, this season will definitely get judged more than anything else based on, how the Jaguars do in the postseason. But whether or not they're able to, have a pretty good record within their division and kind of improve against these 3 teams is, would be a big change under Doug Peterson. So we'll see if they can go to 2-0 in the division in week 3. We can start on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, the Texans have just been decimated on injuries on both sides of the ball. But on defense, they will be without star cornerback Derek Stingley Jr., who got a big red zone interception on Lawrence last season. He suffered a hamstring injury in practice this week. And then middle linebacker Denzel Perryman, who is a big free agent pickup for them, has not practiced through Wednesday and Thursday of this week.
That's a sad sentence.
I think he's doubtful for Sunday. And then there's also Jimmy Ward is coming back. He should be able to play after missing last week. But Taveri Thomas, another one of the cornerbacks, also hasn't practiced Wednesday and Thursday. So,
one more.
The secondary, what was that?
One more. You got one more.
Okay, I was going to go into the spiel, so you got it.
My bad. Jalen Petre, or however the hell you say his name. That literally every name you recognize in the secondary is hurt.
That's what I was about to say. It's the Texans secondary is not horrific, but then once you lose every noticeable name, then it's okay. Because it was funny because the news of Derek Stingley popped up, and then immediately after, the same guy who reported it was Shaquille Griffin is expected to play in Derek Stingley's place. So Jags Twitter kind of ran away with that one. Shaq's only 2 memorable plays last year were 2 deep completions that he allowed. So it'll be interesting to see if Trevor Lawrence and the offense are able to attack not just Griffin, but the entire defensive back unit, I guess, of the Texans, but especially on the outside, because we saw the Jaguars succeed with that in week 1. And granted, Indianapolis had 2 undrafted players starting at outside corner, but they didn't really win outside a lot against the Chiefs. So I think we could see that again this week against the Texans with their decimated secondary.
Yeah, and I mean that it seems like Doug Peterson kind of honestly gave away, because maybe it should have always been obvious, but the Jaguar strategy versus man and zone teams, when he was talking about Christian Kirk last week, it was basically in week 1 we played a zone team. We're not going to throw it to the slot. We're playing the Chiefs. pressure team with man coverage, Kirk gets fed 14 targets. So I think that kind of shows you, if they're playing a zone team, they're probably going to target the outside guys, a bit more than inside. And if they're playing, a man team, and that's the week they could probably see Christian Kirk go off. According to Pro Football Solutions, the Texans are 25th in usage percentage rank in man coverage and 14th in zone coverage. So, they're a zone team, more or less. The Miko comes from, San Francisco, which is like a bastardized child of the Dan. Oh, I'm going to say the Dan Quinn Seattle defense. I'm not going to give Gus Bradley. Come on.
The Dan Quinn style defense. That's absurd.
That's right. The Dan Quinn defense. No. Yeah.
All these years later, now you're starting to call it that.
That's right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. I mean, no, I'm not gonna give that honor. But I mean, it was interesting yesterday. You listened to Press Taylor, and he basically, without saying this is the same defense that the Colts run, that the Seahawks have always run, more or less said that.
Yeah, I feel like he did kind of say it because he was like, yeah, it's kind of similar to the Colts in week 1 where it's like they kind of just line up and play. Like
exactly. And he was like, Shaq Griffin, cut his teeth in this defense. And that was a different team, a different coaching staff, like 3, 4, 5 years ago, whenever Shaq Griffin was in Seattle. So it definitely seems like the Jaguars are anticipating for a Gus Bradley style, zone defense where you more or less see the same thing every play. Because you watch San Francisco like defense now, and of course, they throw some exotic blitzes on third downs and stuff, but they line up the same way, first and second down, and they put their defensive front that ends in a wide 9. They tell them to wreak havoc, and you can do that when you have an amazing defensive line. And I think you look at some of the Texans, efficiency numbers on defense this year. The Texans, overall and EPA per play on defense are 26th. Against the pass, they're 22nd, and against the run, they're 30th. So you're kind of seeing how it's like, in my opinion, difficult to run that scheme without the horses, even if there are some, individual players who are impressive, most of them injured, of course.
Yeah.
But it definitely feels like the Jaguars view this as a defense that they're comfortable with. Like I think Press even. It was either Press or Doug was like, yeah, this is a defense we see a lot. And I'm like, you don't play the 49ers coaching staff. But it in a way, it makes sense. And it does seem like that's the looks they're kind of expecting to get. Now, I know when I tweeted yesterday that the Texans were a zone defense. And somebody was like, they're still having, Stingley play zone. And well, yeah, every defense, any team he'd on, he'd be playing zone. But just because it's zone doesn't mean it's the Tampa 2 every single down that Lovie Smith did, which Trevor Lawrence, for all of his, feats and accomplishments, when you go back and review the KC game, a few missed throws here and there, but still, pretty impressive. Still some big time, throws and some misses should be caught. So even, for as advanced as he is, if Lovie Smith was coaching this game, I'd still say advantage Lovie Smith. He could not get past that cover 2 defense.
I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just the red zone because I felt like at least they would get into Texans territory pretty easily. I felt like he would just be able to snap these zingers to Marvin Jones and Zay Jones in between the linebackers and the safeties. But then as soon as they got into a condensed area of the field, they kind of ran into problems. And so that'll definitely be something to look for. It's just red zone success in general after the Jags went 3 for 3 in week 1 and 0 for 3 in week 2. If you still have the sports info page pulled up, what's their 1 high coverage shell versus 2 high look like?
Let me look. Okay, so they are 8th percent in usage rank and 1 high and 21st and 2 high.
Yeah, so I was curious if D'Amico Ryans, because this is his first opportunity to call a defense entirely in his own vision.
Yeah,
I was curious. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of influence from his time in San Francisco, but I didn't know if he was going to kind of do his own thing, I guess, and switch it up. But I think his own thing is kind of those third down pressure packages that you mentioned earlier, because again, on first and second downs, it's it feels very San Francisco-y what the Texans are doing under Ryans.
Yeah, 100%. And when I say their ranking in terms of usage, I now look at it and that's probably a bit flawed. It's not flawed, but they're pretty much 50-50 guys. They're 54 snaps in one high, 53 snaps in two high. So, they're kind of so they play more one high than most teams do, but they're also more balanced, I think, is what you could, glean from that than other teams. I mean, you go back and look at the Jags, like week 6 game against them last year, or week 5, whenever it was, that 13-6 debacle where Davis Mills won despite throwing 140 yards and 24 passes. And the Jaguars, like, they had 22 first downs. They had 422 total yards, almost 6.0 yards per play, over 100 yards rushing. But they were 0 for 3 in the red zone, like you mentioned. And that's what lost them the Chiefs game, too. So it's weird because against the Colts, they were the exact opposite. They were better in the red zone. They were in between the 20s. So I can confidently say I have no idea what the Jaguars.
Yeah, it's like which version are we getting this week?
Yeah, so that's why I'm not. I see a lot of people talking about Texans injuries and everything like that, and how this should be a get right game. To me, it depends on what red zone offense shows up. If it's the red zone offense from the Chiefs game, I think this is a very losable game.
Yeah, I saw a stat that Trevor Lawrence has never covered as a home favorite. So 9.5 points or 9 points or whatever it is this week against the Texans seems like a lot.
Yeah, it definitely does. And back to your credit about the Miko, the Texans are blitzing on 26% of their plays. They have a 29% success rate, which is 5th best in the NFL when they blitz. They are ranked 28th in success rank on 4-man rushes. So basically, if they're not blitzing, they're not really getting home, which is interesting. I think I saw somebody tweet yesterday. I don't have the tweet up, so I can't credit them. I apologize. But, about like teams allowing quick pressures, and the Jaguars it's basically like when they're getting blitzed, they're allowing pressures, and when they're not, they're basically able to keep them clean. So I'm interested to see how they handle Houston's blitzes, because it does seem like that's a big thing. I don't know if it's communication or or what it is. It just seems like they're struggling with blitz pickups right now, and maybe that could be recency bias because Spags is like from the Wink Martindale like school of blitzing.
Yeah, he's a god.
Yeah, so it I don't know. It's interesting. So to me, the big deal is obviously the red zone, and then we mentioned him earlier. The Jaguars' outside receivers against Shaq Griffin. Namely Calvin Ridley against Shaq Griffin. It'd be
Sorry, go ahead.
It'd be the most Jaguars thing ever for Shaq Griffin to go off.
I'm almost like sad about this Stingley injury because I was like looking forward to just like seeing Ridley go up against him, especially not especially, but like as you said, like he does play in a zone heavy system or not a man heavy system at least. It's not like we would have gotten like an awesome show like we got like during training camp of just like one-on-one Tyson Campbell versus Calvin Ridley. But at the same time, it would have been like a pretty solid test for Ridley because it would have been, I don't know, L'Jarius Sneed is pretty good, but Stingley still probably would have been like the best cornerback he's gone up against so far this season. So now it's like there's not really anything getting in Ridley's way from a big performance.
So if he doesn't have a big game this week, that's like I wouldn't say a red flag, but that's definitely a raised eyebrow.
It's a little bit of like a warning bell.
A beige flag, maybe?
Yeah. I don't know. Like last week, though, he only had 2 catches, but he also had 8 targets and like had maybe you could argue that he should have been utilized even more. But like I feel like he was like utilized enough, and like there was a couple like he got held on like the 1 third down slant that was a no call, and like a couple drops. So like that kind of like bad game doesn't make me worry about like his overall season, but like if he has a bad game against this defense, then and that makes it 2 bad games in a row, then maybe I start to worry.
I mean, we talked about it earlier in the week, but I mean, something that doesn't show up like on the stat sheet. He drew 2 pass interferences too, on deep balls where Kansas City just couldn't run with him. I would just consistently like try throwing deep against Shaq Griffin and try to force him to cause a penalty or something along those lines. So I agree with you. I think it's a really weak. The big injury to watch for Jacksonville this week is that receiver too, though. Zay Jones hasn't practiced this week with a knee injury. Hasn't exactly lit things up this year. He was 0 for 6 on targets against the Chiefs. So he's 5 catches on 13 targets for 55 yards and a touchdown so far this year. It's not the best efficiency, but it's still a loss, obviously, if he doesn't play. Just, I mean, the normal chemistry that Trevor Lawrence and him have, their, kind of the trust that Trevor obviously has with him. If he can't play, shocking to apparently many reply guys on Twitter, the replacement won't be Parker Washington, but it will be Tim Jones. How much do you think Zay's status will kind of, especially since it seems like an outside receiver week? Zay is normally their kind of bread and butter in the pass against zone defenses, just sitting in zones, more or less. How do you think that kind of impacts things? I mean, I think Press already talked about maybe more 12 and 13 personnel. He also mentioned Jamal Agnew more in offense. So, yeah. So we shall see.
I think you kind of answer right there. There will be like a couple different answers. Like Tim Jones will be the most frequent answer or the most frequent replacement for Zay Jones this week, assuming that Zay doesn't go. But like they'll have Agnew play plenty of snaps, I'm sure. It would be cool to see because they've done like some 12 and 13 personnel stuff, but maybe it just hasn't worked as well as I thought or hoped it would. But I also thought that they haven't been using it like they've been using it a little bit less than I expected. So maybe they ramp it up a little bit more here in week 3. But at the end of the day, it's just like kind of replacing snaps. And I don't think that like Zay's targets per game will like go directly to one guy or anything, or even like 2 guys. I think it'll just be more of a big game for Ridley and for Kirk probably, because even if he does match up better against man teams, like with Zay being out, then like wouldn't be surprised by a good Ridley game. But like the 2 non-Ridley players I'll be like watching most are Evan Engram, because of like what you said on our Wednesday podcast. Like his effort has been so outstanding so far, and like he clearly deserves more targets. Not that anyone on the team like deserves less targets, but he clearly deserves more.
Give him the ball more.
Yeah. And then Tank Bigsby, because like he had like 2 welcome to the league moments in week 1, and then I don't know if like Jaguars coaches like just didn't trust him in such a big moment in week 2 when like it seemed like everyone on the team was pressing for the win. But he had like about the same snap share in week 2, just went from 7 touches to 0. So I like we saw in week 1 when after Bigsby had one of the bad turnovers, the coaches had him run 3 straight plays. So I think that was like a here, like rookie, let's give you some confidence back. So I feel like this week in general is like here, rookie, like let's give you some confidence back. Like I could see Tank Bigsby getting 10 plus carries if assuming the game goes the way that we expect it to with all the Texans injuries.
Yeah, I mean the Jaguars, like their running backs, I think ran it just 13 times against the Chiefs. 12 for ETN, 1 for Dearness Johnson. And, you go back to the Colts game and it was, 18 carries for ETN, 7 for Bigsby, 1 for Johnson. So they ran it significantly more with the running backs in week 1 and week 2. And you kind of saw like if the carries get scaled back, it will be Bigsby whose numbers really get scaled back. I think the running game is probably like if they can't get the running game going this week, I think that's what should set off every alarm, every bell and whistle and everything that could possibly go on and to signify, okay, this is bad. I mean, the Texans rush defense, it's not good. They're consistently giving up big plays on the ground. I said they were 30th in rushing EPA. They're 20th in rushing success rate, which is obviously a little better, but it's still like they're still not a top half of the team rush defense from an efficiency metric. Obviously Anthony Richardson was able to get some quarterback runs against them. I feel like if this isn't the week for Travis Etienne, and they have running game issues, and so far they have only 6 of his 30 carries have gone for more than 5 yards this year. All 5 of them came in week 1, and one of them was like a 9-yard carry against the Chiefs in week 2. So there's been like no running room for him. To the offensive line's credit, you go back and watch the Chiefs game, and there is a missed hole here or there from ETN, still running a bit Stevie Wonder at times. But I think this has to be the week where you get him going, especially like honestly, if they don't, if I'm the coaching staff, you shouldn't ever go into a game thinking there's how many carries a guy needs. But I think this is the week Travis Etienne needs 18 to 20 carries, and if I'm the coaching staff, like Tank, we'll get back to you next week. Like it doesn't seem like the Texans, their defense, especially hobbled, is built to stop a guy like Etienne, who can really get the edge and get angles on you. So that's what I'm interested in. And I think a big thing people forget, with Zay Jones is what he does in the running game. A lot of the crack toss stuff, he is like the guy setting the edge. So Tim Jones has always been a great blocker. I'm interested to see what he does there, but I'm also interested to see if Zay doesn't play, how that impacts some of the stuff they do schematically in the running game.
True. Good point. Yeah, part of the Tank thing was that, like, I feel like his main role that he was drafted for was like short yardage and goal line.
Oh yeah.
But another one is like just chew clock, because like some teams, like we saw with the Chargers last year, have like a difficult time just like keeping a lead and like just like chewing the clock out. And so like having a solid bruising running back like actually kind of goes a long way to be able to just finish out and close out games. So that was kind of where I was thinking was like, if this game goes how we expect and like the Jags are up 10 in the second half, then like just trying to get the rookie going a little bit.
Would you rather have on a drive 1 50-yard gain or 10 5-yard gains?
10 5-yard gains.
I agree.
That's efficiency right there.
Yeah, I agree. Eat up the clock. That's Pop Warner 101, man. Let's get this long scoring drive going, man.
If you do all the short gains, and like the deep game will like open up for you eventually. Yeah.
Which is what I think the Jaguars probably struggled with last week. Like they were going for so many big plays, and like they weren't getting any of those like short chunk yards plays to stay on the field. It's something else. And last thing we'll talk about for the offense, Anton versus Will Anderson, I think is like the matchup to watch this week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Will Anderson, 8 pressures, 3 quarterback hits through 2 games. Like he's been as advertised. He's the only real guy they have. I know Doug talked about Jonathan Greenard, and so it's
he's
God. Oh God. Florida grads sticking together.
I wouldn't
typical
speak of him as highly as Doug did, but I certainly won't speak of him as lowly as you are.
Yeah.
He's solid.
Yeah. Florida is DBU. Yeah. Tipsy looking walk on water. Come on. Give me all the shtick. Come on.
I was giving you none of the shit. You gave it to yourself.
Yeah. All right. Well, real quick, we will take a break, and then we will get to the defense. All right, Gus. Mike Caldwell, reigning, defending Coach of the Year candidate. Yeah,
Coach of the Year candidate.
Bro, he was.
Josh Taylor thought he was getting his name out there.
He was talking his shit yesterday too, man. Like basically every question he got was like, lauding the defense and their stuff so far, and he's like, "No, we haven't done good." He's like,
we're 1-1.
Yeah, so I've been very impressed by what he's done, and honestly, what they've done to fit the scheme for the personnel. Like you go look at their tendency rates on defense from like SIS, and they've ran zone coverage on 65 snaps and man coverage on 12, and that's what they need to do, like for the secondary that they have. You don't have the horses to run with teams and man coverage all game. So they're one of the highest, zone usage teams in the league, and they're 9th in success rank. No, they're 4th in success rank. Wow, I was reading the wrong thing completely. So they've been one of the best zone defenses this year, and I think for rookie quarterbacks, zone defenses is harder to play than man defenses. I have no data to back that up. I have no empirical anything.
You got me to back it up. No, you're right, John.
Am I?
I'm like pretty positive. Yes.
Hell yeah! There we go. I pulled that one out of nowhere.
All right, I'll put it to you this way: Gardner Minshew and Trevor Lawrence were both way better against man as a rookie than zone. Like, not even close. And they're like opposite types of quarterbacks. But like, because in man, like you can like it's a lot easier for coaches to scheme stuff up. I think is kind of the point, and it's a
For
lot
sure.
easier to just like go from read one to read two, like because like after your first read, like after you get off of your first read in zone, like the picture can get so muddled. So yeah, I think it'll be good for the Jaguars to have like their zone heavy approach against CJ Stroud this week because so far the Texans' number 2 overall pick has looked like pretty good and pretty poised, but sometimes he'll like pat the ball a little bit too much and stay in the pocket a little bit too much because like his accuracy and poise is like already there, but his like processing speed, like it's only going to be his 3rd NFL game on Sunday. Like he's not an awesome processor yet. So if like the Jaguars are able to like continue to play really well in their zones and then like buy some time for the pass rush to get home, then like I'm not too worried about CJ Stroud hurting the defense this week.
Yeah, no, I think he's good for a rookie quarterback while still being on a bad offense. If that makes
Yeah, I
sense.
mean like he's good, but like not scary good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the Texans are 25th on offense and EPA per play, 32nd in success rate. You know, you got to drop back EPA per play. They're 23rd. You know, they're 27th in drop back success rate. In terms of running the ball, they're 29th in, EPA and 29th in success rate. So, it's a bad offense, and
Yeah.
of course there are, reasons for it. Their offensive line last week was left tackle Josh Jones, not a starter. Left guard Kendrick Green, who isn't Kenyon Green and is also not a starter.
Hmm.
Center Jarrett Patterson, not a starter. Right guard Shaq Mason, a starter.
A starter.
Right tackle George Font, not a starter. So that, like, it seems like Tunzel is like up in the air. He's been limited this week, but even if Tunzel plays, that's 2 of your 5 starting offensive linemen. And Tunzel's obviously, the best one, but this feels like a week that the Jaguars, like their defensive line needs to step up to disrupt the quarterback. And if they don't, then that to me is okay. What's going on?
The the injuries that the Texans have on their offensive line is definitely what gives me the most confidence for a Jaguars win or for the Jaguars to potentially cover the spread this week. Because as fun as Shaq Griffin is replacing Derek Stingley Jr. is, like, I feel like a big reason that the Texans won in Jacksonville last year was like being able to just run behind that offensive line. Like Dameon Pierce had an awesome game on the ground. And like the way that the Texans are going to be able to win this year is like kind of a similar method where like you just keep the ball a lot on offense and like slow the game down and like limit possessions, yada yada. So like with a decimated offensive line, that task becomes extremely difficult. And the Jaguars' defensive line was already like arguably outplaying themselves through 2 weeks of this season. So I'm definitely excited to see like whether they're up for the task of like, I don't know, beating up on the little opponent, because like the mark of a really good football team sometimes is like not just beating other good teams, but like beating really bad teams by a lot. So that'll be what I'm looking forward to like this week for the Jaguars versus Texans is like obviously in order to do some convincing, they have to beat the Texans by more than just 3 points. But then also like for the defensive line specifically, like they have to do more than just like get a pressure too.
100%.
Their game to win, I think.
100%. I think this has to be a Trayvon Walker week and a Rory Robertson Harris week. I think those 2 guys need to have a big game. And you look at the Jaguars pass rush, this year, they're number 14th in pressure rate at 32.6%, number 22nd in sack percentage at 5.4. Last year, they were number 6 in pressure percentage at 37%, number 28th in sack rate at 5.2%. So it's basically the same pass rush, just getting less pressure, which is not good, obviously. So it definitely needs to have a get right week this week. I mean, Josh Allen, he's been limited this week wearing a non-contact jersey. Doug Peterson keeps saying he's fine, even though I presume that he would say he's fine if he had his left arm amputated. He's been by far, their best pass rusher. Like before he got hurt against the Chiefs, I think he had 3 or 4 pressures and a quarterback hit that caused an interception. Like he was everywhere. And then obviously he gets hurt, and you see the pass rush really take a dive. Either way, he's either not playing Tunzel, but he's limited and banged up this week, or he's going against Tunzel while being limited. Probably not, a great Josh Allen week. So I think you need to see Trayvon, especially. Like I know his impact and goes beyond what any stats can show, like pressure stats or anything like that. But get a sack. Just do it. Just do
something on the sheet.
Yeah, he had one.
I was just trying to back up your argument.
That's right. Like the excuses of he's learning defensive end, etc., etc. He's been in the NFL for over a year now. Like, go get 6 pressures in a game. Just do it. Like this is the week to do it. And this is a week where we look back on Monday and he had 1 pressure, and we're talking about how his impact goes beyond like the stat sheet. It would feel like it did like Trevor's rookie year when we were like, the numbers are all time bad, but it's good. It's actually good, and how we went into year 2 saying, okay, if we said about Trevor this year, then that's terrible. That's how I feel about Walker's impact this year, and especially this week. Like the impact has to be more tangible this year, but especially this week. And if he struggles this week, then I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. Good point. It'll be interesting to see like who he gets matched up against the most, like especially if Josh doesn't play or is limited, then like you would assume that Trayvon is going to be like their best mismatch weapon against like pretty much anyone on the Texans offensive line.
He should be able, like, if they had any kind of depth at all, you should be able to line him in front of Kendrick Green for 15 to 20 pass rush snaps and do what the Chiefs did last week with Chris Jones and Anton. But they don't. They don't, so they can't do it.
Yeah. I was also going to say, like, something cool that the Chiefs did last week was, like, lining up Chris Jones and George Karlaftis on the same time. Like, have we ever seen Trayvon and Josh Allen on the same side?
I don't think so.
Like, we saw, like, Arden Key, like, bump over and run games with Josh Allen and stuff like that. But, like, it's never been Trayvon and Josh running, like, games on the same side of the line.
I say this every week, and I'm probably going to every week for the rest of the year. They miss Arden Key a lot.
If they had Arden Key, like, but my only question for the defense would be, like, how quickly can 33 put it all together?
Yeah. So, quick question. Okay, so Trayvon has 117 snaps this year, okay?
Okay.
How many do you think he has lined up inside? And obviously, this is a little bit of me being an ass because he does stunt inside a good bit. But how many snaps is he lined up inside?
117 total? Yeah. I'm going to say 4 of them have come inside.
That's exactly right.
Hey!
He has as many snaps at slot corner as he does at right defensive tackle.
Which
we're going to move him around more.
Corner. He was just at edge and like way off of the line, like lining up at 13 technique.
Yeah, so there, he's definitely going to be using and that's the thing. Like you can't even put him in like inside because what are you going to do? Put Caleb on outside. You see Abdullah, who's it's not his fault. Like he's a 5th round rookie, but he's still obviously a ways away, and I get gaslit every time I think about their entire strategy about the pass rush. So we're on the same page. Like pass rush needs to do something this week.
They got to.
Yeah, they got to. Who on Houston offensively, like when Houston has the ball, do you have anybody that like scares you?
Yeah, I was going to ask you the same thing, especially about like their skill position players, or about their pass catchers, or just about their receivers, because like Dalton Schultz doesn't scare me, their tight end, and like I like a Dameon Pierce, but he doesn't necessarily like scare me, especially with the Texans' offensive line being in the shape that they are in. So
that sounded very Italian. I like a Dameon Pierce.
I like a Dameon Pierce.
Yeah.
So I think Nico Collins is like easily the biggest offensive threat that the Texans have. So like my thing that I'll be watching for is like how often is Tyson Campbell matchup against him, because it seems like a very obvious matchup in terms of just like both their size and their strengths. Because they're strong, I mean like their literal strength. It's just the type of receiver that Tyson has had a lot of success with in the past, like the Cortland Suttons and the Mike Williams and such of the world. Last year, Tyson played the majority of his snaps against Brandon Cooks, and he's no longer a Texan. So even though Nico doesn't necessarily like run 100% of his snaps like on the line from the X, like perimeter receiver, which would make it like a lot easier for Tyson to match up with him on him a lot. I would expect Tyson to see a lot of him. So, and then besides that, like maybe Tank Dell will do his best like Darius Toney impression against the Jaguars, but like it's just Nico Collins to me.
It's funny. I feel like Tyson Campbell matches up with Nico Collins much better than he matches up with Sky Moore, and Nico Collins is roughly 80 times better of a football player than Sky
About
Moore.
80 to 90 times better, yeah.
It's just funny how matchups work like that. You know, like so I'm with you. Like Nico has 20 targets so far. So, you know, he's getting 10 targets per game, 226 yards, a touchdown. Robert Woods is second in targets. He's getting
Bobby Trees.
He's getting 9.5 targets per game. So he's not getting targeted like that much less than Nico. He's obviously doing significantly less with set targets, but nonetheless. And then Tank Dell's getting 7 targets per game. Dalton and Schultz are getting 5.5, and then everything else, it's, you know, Damian Pierce and Noah Brown get a target here and there. So that's easily their 3 guys. I think, you know, goes Nico, Woods, Tank Dell in terms of what they're trying to do on a down-to-down basis.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I wasn't a huge Tank Dell guy coming out, and it's become my new thing that I don't dislike him as a player, but I dislike every single tweet about him. Like that preseason, like he had like a slant against like 15-yard like off coverage, and then attempted to split the defenders and got tackled, and everybody was like, "You didn't Tank Dell on your fans team."
Yeah,
like, what did you do?
He didn't do anything.
Like, I'm pretty sure Cole Beasley in his current state could have done that.
I thought you were gonna say I could have done that.
No.
What are your thoughts on Tutu Atwell? Same thing.
No, he's probably a bit better than. I think he's better than Tank Dell. I don't know. Maybe that's the McVay effect.
It probably is, but yeah, he's probably the best of like him, Tony.
Personally, I think Atwell being in the NFL is a lawsuit waiting to happen, and he's probably like bodily harm, like in danger every single snap he's on the field.
Yeah.
He's in the Bryce Young category for me. I'm afraid for him every time I see him on TV. And Bryce Young's the same way. I am already afraid for the small man.
I just like feel bad for Bryce Young because he seems like he would be so good and so cool, but I don't know if he will be.
It is okay. We'll get the hot takes going, you know, already.
Okay.
Don't care if it's 2 games in. The Panthers.
I mean, we were talking about the Texans offense. So.
Come on. The Panthers obviously took the 3rd best rookie quarterback.
Obviously, yeah.
I think even in 5 years that'll be true.
I've been trying to tell people for so long Anthony Richardson should have gone 1. It's like he's literally Cam Newton.
I think Stroud's been better.
Jalen Carter?
I think Stroud's been better.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, don't have a problem with Stroud. I will say he ranks 4th in the league in passing yards right now. Like that's probably one of the faker stats I've seen so far this year.
Give me the volume stats, baby. Give me the volume stats. What's your ranking attempts? Come on.
The season is so weird because it's only week 2. Like these sample sizes are like too small to actually like have strong takes, but at the same time, like it's our job to have takes about the teams in the season and the league.
CJ Stroud has 50% more healthy ankles than Bryce Young.
Okay. Hot take, not made up stats. I've got a hot take for you. Deion Sanders will be an NFL head coach by 2024.
Who will be?
Deion Sanders.
Okay, Mike Florio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Florio. I didn't see anything Florio said about it.
Every 3 days, he has a Deion Sanders Willie coaching NFL article that he tweaks ever so slightly, like just turns the dial just a bit.
for you. I
don't think
Bulls
Deion will
Mountain
coach.
Monthly Cat Country every once in a while.
I don't think Deion will coach in the NFL. He wants to recruit on Sunday through Friday and then vibe on Saturday.
I think that like the only reason I didn't say 2023 is because his kid is still playing at Colorado, and like I don't know if he's gonna like stick around for as long as his kid does. But like my thing is that even if he doesn't take an NFL coaching job, like I'm like positive that he's gonna get interviews in the next offseason or two.
Okay, I got a hot take for you.
Okay.
Dameon Pierce dies of mid. Yeah, he's mid. He'll get what's there. I don't think he's any better
You just hate Gators.
Yes, but I don't think he's any better. I don't think he's any better than rookie James Robinson was skill set wise.
James Robinson was good. He was like
I think he's significantly worse than rookie. What would you say Pierce is?
Top 15. Like I think he's like between like. Bro, there's not that many good running backs. Like who's starting for the Bucs? Like I do like a Rachaad White actually, but like he's not that good.
Give me a second. We're gonna do this. Okay. He's 40th in the league in rushing yards right now, by the way.
Who Pierce?
So we're gonna go all 39 players in front of him for running backs, and you tell me who you'd rather have.
I just said this, John. It's only week 2. We can't be doing this. This is insane.
Christian McCaffrey or Dameon Pierce? Answer the question. Okay, so that's one.
You want to do this 39 times?
Bijan Robinson or Dameon Pierce?
I'm putting my foot down. Just tell me your hot take. Like you can't say Dameon Pierce is mid. Like
I don't think Dameon Pierce is a top 20 running back in the NFL.
Okay, so you want to say he'll finish outside the top 20 in rushing yards this season?
He is Zach Moss with stands.
Okay. It's so difficult.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go. Dameon Pierce finishes outside the top 15 in. I'm trying to think of a good like rushing metric. I'd say rushing DVOA, but that's I got nuked.
Right. Yeah, yards per carry obviously isn't great, and you hate rushing yards over expected.
No, okay, let's do rushing yards over expected. I'll give you an olive branch.
I'll put rushing yards and rushing yards over expected.
Okay, I don't think he finishes top 15 in either.
Yeah,
put it on the board.
We'll see if he finishes in at least one, but
okay. If he finishes top 15 and only rushing yards over expected, it doesn't count, and I win. You look so tired.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. That feels like a. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got one other hot take.
Let's hear it.
This is the most confident I've felt about the Jaguars' chances to win a Super Bowl in my lifetime at this current moment.
Like today?
Yeah. Well, this week.
Were you asleep last week?
No, I feel more confident this week than last week. And granted, this is like post 2007 because I was 8 when they went to the playoffs in 2007, so I didn't really I wasn't thinking about like their Super Bowl chances that much.
You were 8 when they won in 2017.
So that's my thing. I'm saying like I have more confidence in them winning the Super Bowl right now after the Chiefs loss than when they were getting ready to go to Foxborough.
Wow. So you didn't have more confidence like 5 minutes before the kickoff of week 1 than you do right now?
No, and it's because as gross and ridiculous and offensive as the offense is looking, like we talked about it more on the Tuesday or the Wednesday this week podcast where like it's things that like we could see getting fixed. And like I didn't know if the defense could get fixed, but like Mike Caldwell is just that guy. And so like I just have a lot more confidence in the defense 2 weeks into the season than I like ever thought I would.
Same.
Like I don't even think that like this version of the Jaguars can win the Super Bowl this year. Like I think they would either have to like have a considerable amount of luck, which any team that wins the Super Bowl kind of needs anyway, or they would need to like make some kind of like trade deadline deal to like kind of like bring in like their version of like the Rams adding Von Miller at the trade deadline, kind of. But like like Mike Godwell just like I think has the goods, and like limiting Patrick Mahomes to the game that he has, like I have a lot more confidence in like the Jaguars defense being able to hold up in like the playoffs against really good quarterbacks, assuming that the like defense stays healthy, and like we don't have to get into all the like depth concerns. But yeah, like I feel really good, just better about the defense than I've ever felt, or at least since 2017. And then I feel good enough about the offense for like just like I genuinely feel like they're like could be like a list at the bottom of like the contenders to win a Super Bowl, where I don't know if I ever really felt that way before.
Oh, I can see that. That's not a bad take.
Because like in 2017, it's like it was like kind of scary to like think more than one game ahead because you didn't want to like self jinx the team or something like that.
Yeah,
That was my mindset at least. But also like they had Blaine or not Blaine Gabbert, they had Blake Bortles. And, like
you're right the first time.
I never had like a lot of trust in that team or a lot of faith in that team to like win it all. I was just like kind of enjoying the ride while it happened.
I saw. So I don't know how I got retweeted, but again, Steven Ruiz, friend of the show, I don't know.
Isn't that Ruiz?
What is it?
You said Steven Ruiz.
I have trouble with my R's. I went to speech therapy my entire elementary school years, and here you are.
Here
you are discriminating.
Hosting a podcast.
Nonetheless, his yakety sax video of Blake Bortles versus the Chiefs in 2018 got retweeted
like this past week.
Yeah, and I'm like, this was an NFL quarterback, man. That's incredible. So I don't think that's a bad take. I won't be as cruel to you as I thought, or as
there's not really a way to like measure that in the future too, but I guess like just the point that I'm trying to make is that like I'm really impressed by Mike Caldwell, and I'm not overly worried about Press Taylor.
Yeah, that's good takeage, guys. That's good takeage.
Thank you. You want to do some prize picks predictions before we get out of here?
After we take a break real quick. All right, Gus. Prize picks and predictions before we get out of here. Why don't you kick us off?
So I like Tank Bigsby this week.
Okay.
The thing about it is I don't see I don't see odds or lines for his like rushing yards or anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, on prize picks. Looking right now to see if it's like on DraftKings, so I can at least like say a number. So give me 5 seconds. Oh, rushing receiving props. And Tank Bigsby is not listed. Okay, so Tank Bigsby to score a touchdown, you can get on DraftKings at like plus 280.
Okay.
Since he's not listed on prize picks either, like Calvin Ridley is probably like my best bet. Like I've bet on him like 3 times in a row, or at least each of the past 2 weeks. I've like listed him in my best player prop bets article on Big Cat Country. And I just feel like this is like the last time to buy low on Calvin Ridley. It's like if you're listening to this and you're in a fantasy league and you didn't draft him, like now's your last chance to like send a trade and try to get him, because again, like he's got Shaq Griffin and the Texans secondary on deck this week. I think it'll be we've seen like 1 or 2 like deep plays between Lawrence and Ridley, but they've been like 20 or 30 yarders. I kind of like Ridley longest reception over like whatever that line is on DraftKings too. Like I think there'll be like one like really big hookup between Lawrence and Ridley, and he'll have a good game.
Okay. You ready for my lock of the week?
Lock of the week, yeah.
Lock of the week. Brandon McManus over 1.5 field goals.
I knew you were going to say this. There's like 3 Jaguars players listed, so of course you go with Brandon McManus.
Brandon McManus is going to kick like 4 field goals this weekend. That is lock of the week. I need to make sure my prediction also has that with multiple field goals. I like Travis Etienne, 22.5 rushing yards in first 5 attempts.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's tough, man. Yeah, that's prize picks. I think I'll go over there. I think he'll get an explosive run here and there.
Over 22.5 rushing yards in his first 5 attempts.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, me too. And then see, Trevor, it was 268.5 passing plus rushing yards. I like the over on that.
You think he might tuck it a little bit more this week?
On the red zone, but
yeah, that's what I was about to say.
But I do think like the nature of like their defense, if it's like the throw like isn't there, like just the zone, like you could see him, especially if they have quick edge pressure, because like just the technique that they play wide 9, it kind of naturally leaves like a scramble lane.
That's a good point, because I was thinking like usually man defenses are much more susceptible to like quarterback scrambles than zone defenses, because when zone, like all the defenders are looking at the quarterback, and man, all the defenders are like chasing their guy. But it's a good point about the wide 9, because that does like kind of create some rushing lanes. So I like that.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Gus, send us home. Who you got win this week? I can presume, but go ahead and give me a score.
I haven't thought about a score prediction.
Jaguars.
I think okay, what was yours?
Jaguars 27, Texans 23.
Jags 27, Texans 23.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I said the Jags are going to score 40 as a hot take on Wednesday, so I might as well just go all in. I'll say Jaguars 40, Texans 10.
Damn. Sorry, I already had the cough, and then that made my cough worse.
I just figure, like, if the Jags are going to score 40 points, like, how often are the Texans even going to, like, have the ball?
Yeah.
Or get on their side of the field or whatever. So, I don't know. That's obviously expecting a 30-point win is a lot, but I'm expecting a big bounce back from the Jaguars. And if I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. And we can freak out about it next week. But I think they'll have a good performance this week.
For the record, pretty much every game I'm picking the rest of the year is going to be close. 75% of the NFL games so far have been one-score games in the fourth quarter. So
this one won't be 30 points.
There we go. Okay, put it on the board. 40 to 10. All right,
it's written down. We'll be laughing about it next week. I promise you that.
All right. Well, Gus, I'll see you in the press box, my friend.
Sounds good, buddy.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us. We will be back next week reviewing a 40 to 10 Jaguars win, evidently.